Oh man, are we back again? We're back to the Independent Voter Podcast. I got some of my favorite reform people here. Ethan is actually in front of the camera. You see how beautiful his face is,
I made it.
right?
I made it. You know, I had to put a lot of work into this face. So,
It's as beautiful as his voice is poetic, right?
well, thank you, Chad.
Yeah, you're welcome. We got Sean from Chicago. How cold is it right now, Sean?
It's actually not as bad as it has been. It's in
Oh, I
the
was
late
talking about
30s
the
and
political
40s.
environment.
Oh, the
Talking about
political environment. Oh, well, it's Chicago. It's as democratic as you could get here. So it's it is
that
no
cold?
different from other partisan areas that you would get. It's just, if you're, it's just much further on the left side of things. So here.
And Kara, I know you're cold. It's freezing up there in Maine.
We got half a foot of snow last night, and I'm pretty much snowed in again. But I am going to come to California on a Friday, so I'm very excited about
Well,
that.
you're not even going to visit me.
No,
That's
I really think I'm going to try to make it down for the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes premiere on the Midway.
Yeah, it's on the Midway. The ship. It's literally going to be premiered on the ship.
I don't see how I could miss that.
Yeah.
It's it is raining here right now, though. Unfortunately.
Okay, so we've had basically summer.
Yeah.
While they've been snowed in, it's been like literally 85 degrees and sunny, and then everybody in San Diego is crying today because we got some drizzle on the way to work in the middle of winter.
Brutal.
I love it that Californians have like no idea how to drive in the rain. The whole thing breaks down completely.
It's all of the jokes about that, they're totally true. It's like, oh, there's some rain, guarantee there's going to be like 3 accidents today.
Meanwhile, we had like 20 consecutive days under freezing here in Chicago. Finally, the snow was melting. So,
Can you imagine if there was icy roads in San Diego? What would happen?
God.
Does San Diego even have
The population
snowplows?
would definitely decrease.
Yeah. They probably don't even have snowplows. Exactly. So, there you go.
You're all very lucky. All you warm San Diegans.
All right. Well,
so let's get into it with Sean, huh?
Well, yeah, Sean. I think we were chatting a little before the show. We're gonna have an underlying thing of like what's just like annoying or like kind of pissing you off too in this in the space, because I know some things are irking Kara, so we decided let's just make that a theme. So with that in mind, Mr.
Reform with the Reform Roundup, we've been following what's happening in Missouri with that gerrymander map, as well as the veto referendum to try to repeal that map. And so we're coming up on the candidate filing deadline, which comes up, I think it's the 27th. It's later this month. And at that point, there's no decision that's been made on any of the cases, whether it's on the ballot summary, whether a third of the signatures gathered will count, whether it's on whether or not the map will be frozen as legal and political precedent has set.
Can I just like step back for those who aren't paying? Like what you're saying is like they haven't decided what the districts are, but the candidates who have to run for the undecided districts need to declare.
They haven't decided exactly what the congressional map's going to look like this year, but the candidates have to file soon in order to run. So we do know, at least on the ballot summary question, of whether or not, because we talked about in a previous podcast how Denny Hoskins had to come out and admit that he wrote biased language against it. And so now we know on Friday of this week, both sides, the plaintiffs and the defendants, will have to submit their own new summaries for it. So at least that will be decided soon. But it's kind of insane that we have the situation where, like we were saying, we don't know what the map's going to look like, and the candidates have to file for their districts. So it's crazy.
I just think that that's ridiculous, Sean. I don't see how you can decide the lines of an election. Like, how could you wait until this many months before a November election? Or I'm sorry, there's probably primaries, right?
Yeah, so the primaries actually take place in August, so there is still some time for that.
That's not enough time.
It's
right?
still, I would say that's not enough time, but it really
have
speaks.
To know what district am I running for? Like what voters am I going to represent?
All these,
I thought California was bad.
Well, we saw this in 2024 where all these sort of legal shenanigans to try to stall the process on some stuff ended up going down to the wire and to election day. And that's just
Wow.
that can't happen. It can't happen. That is the biggest threat to integrity and voter confusion and voter faith in the
Or it's
system
right up there,
there.
right? I mean,
Right.
Right.
it's right up there with all the rest of them, because the rules of the game, as we know, the rules of the election,
Mhm.
that's what matters, right? And you need to follow the rules. And if they're going to change the rules midstream, that's not okay. I mean, that's sort of what's happening right now in Maine, that it looks like they decided that they want the court to decide if there should be ranked choice voting in the elections this November using RCV for governor, because we only use it for our federal races here in Maine. We don't use
Right.
it for the governor. And it's a really long story about why that's so. But now
Yeah.
it looks like they're going to try to change it. And there's an election going on right now. You can't tell a candidate you're going to have a different system
Mhm.
Yeah,
for a
like
race
in
where you're
this
already
year, right?
declared. Like
Which
that's
which
terrible.
we all know, like, why does this happen? Because somebody in the system that has a position of authority has calculated that their outcome is going to be better if we have this system, and that's their like Kara, as a true reformer who literally worked on a bill that passed the first ranked choice voting statewide in the country in Maine, right? It's like, okay, well, this is going to be effective in the next election. Here's where we're going to do it, right? Everybody will know the rules. And then it's like, our underlying thing, what's irking you is like, because somebody has a position of authority in the government, they can try to push through a change this election, which we'd actually, as reformers, be like, that's great.
Yes.
But they're only doing it in their self-interest and to manipulate the field. And we know if they don't like it the next year, then they'll go file lawsuits or file a bill, and then they'll try to undo it. And it's
Well, they were elected under the system
Yeah.
that promoted those types of people, not
Well,
the people that would be elected in a reformed system. So
right. Well, the Maine legislature just passed a bill again, and what the new saying is it's expanding the use of ranked choice voting to governor for other state executive offices. I hate the word expand because the measure that passed in 2016 was to implement ranked choice voting for all state elections. So really what this is doing is just fully giving what voters voted for in 2016 and then again in 2018.
Which is
so
awesome, right?
Yeah,
That's
which is great.
awesome.
But
Yay.
the issue all here is like you do it right before filing deadlines and
Right.
stuff, right?
Right.
So that's
Or
really,
after in this case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe it's after the filing deadline, or it's
Yeah.
right as it's happening. I believe that the candidates who are running for governor now are in the process of getting their 2,000 or 4,000 signatures. I think if you're an independent, you need 4,000, and if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you only need 2,000. But they're working to get on the ballot now. They've all got their campaigns going. I love ranked choice voting.
We
I've
know.
worked so hard, right? I know you know, but to try to do this in the middle of an election just gives them a
Yeah.
reason to try
Well, and
to not do it.
I'm going to say if Kara McCormick is saying you're doing ranked choice voting and we got to hold on, then I think you got to take
I don't want to be one of those people.
Like,
I really don't.
Well,
I believe in
no.
you got to let
right,
all the
and
flowers bloom.
and it just expands it even more in Maine because right now that bill that passed, it's going to be held in the Senate until the state Supreme Court rules on whether or not it is constitutional. Because again, as Kara said, this whole legal thing goes back to 2016, goes back to an initial advisory opinion from that court saying that you can't use ranked choice voting in these state executive offices. And so now the legislature is asking the court again to weigh in on this. And so the bill won't even go to the governor's desk until the Supreme Court makes a decision.
It did
Yeah.
last, it did go to her desk and she got rid of it.
A court may say yes, but you can't do it now because it'll frustrate the political process. Or
Right.
That would be
Right.
interesting.
Well, and I think that's what in Missouri, I think that's what the state officials are hoping for with this whole candidate filing thing is like, well, once the candidate filing deadline comes, the state can go to the courts and say, well, it's too late now.
Well, courts hate changing the political stuff even when they know there's a constitutional issue because getting involved in the political process. But
the hardest thing of all is implementing a law. Like getting it passed is only the first step, and getting it implemented is a whole other ball of wax, as they say. And so
well, we've seen that. And speaking of, like, I mean, but like, where are we at in states like Oklahoma that are trying to get this stuff implemented? Is there any news out of there, Sean?
Not lately. The last update was that they submitted their filing petition, so now it's just waiting to see if those signatures are verified. They had gotten about 30,000 more signatures than they needed, which is it's good cushion, but we'll see if it's enough. Obviously, Chad and Kara, you both have run campaigns. You want to give yourself ample signature cushion just in case
Yeah.
signatures are thrown out. Or,
Well, yeah, you
know.
have to do that. But
Yeah.
I mean, so then if there's not really much update, and
So
can I start?
how do they verify the signatures anyways?
It's county
Who's
by
in charge
county.
of throwing them
Yeah.
out?
County by
It's,
county.
it's town by town, county by county, and then statewide.
So they would just like run through everyone and like, what are they comparing them to? Like their driver's license signature? Like
The
You know,
voter
and-
rolls. So they have like
okay.
a voter roll, and so there's a clerk, and she'll look at the signatures that come in on the petition, and then she'll compare them to the voter roll signatures, and it has to have an address, and she'll make sure that the address matches, and then at that point, the town clerk will give it a little golden star, and then once she gives all of her golden stars, then you have to give it back to the petition gatherers, and then it has to go to the Secretary of State, who also goes through all the signatures to make sure that they're all correct. So it's like a double, and that's how you get something on the ballot.
That's a lot of integrity involved there. You know, we're always
And
talking
speaking
about
of that, you guys,
the low integrity of elections. I feel like that's
ballot signature gathering, especially like I'm in California, where like even in a city you have to have tens of thousands. Like, there's no initiative that can get on the ballot without significant dollars, right? Like, you don't just have somebody volunteer to go, right? And it's a crazy world.
Yeah,
crazy.
And the first time we did it in Maine, Ethan, it took us almost a year and a half to get, because we didn't have any paid signatures. We just did it all with volunteers.
In California, talk about expensive statewide campaigns. You have to, in order to get an initiative on the ballot, you have to collect over 1 million signatures.
And there's a time frame. We can't do it in a year and a half, whether it's state or municipal. You get 6 months, right? You get and that's from the time of file. I mean, we could have a whole show on the industry of petition gathering, but that is but speaking of initiatives in California, if our underlying theme is things that are upsetting you, is it's not really upsetting me. I think it's highlighting an issue we all care about. California's like governor's race has this packed ballot, and everyone knows are we going to end up with two Republicans on the ballot, or two Democrats, or this is one of the unintended consequences of a nonpartisan system. If you look back, California did something revolutionary along with Washington, right? Washington State, right?
Yeah.
The way elections work, and now Alaska, the way elections work in most states is that the parties, by law, have their nomination process, and the purpose is to elect a nominee that represents the party, right? In California, Washington, forget your political ideology. All it did was say, why are we treating candidates and voters differently? And this is a taxpayer-funded process. And so California said, and actually on Justice Scalia's advice when they threw out the old open primary, saying, look, if you want a process that treats everybody the same, you have to have a nonpartisan primary. So that's what we did, right? And we can go back to all the history of why we had two candidates, but we wanted to make sure there was a majority approved winner. And you have all the discussions you want. There's certainly unintended consequences. I will defend till the day I die the improvement it's done to the California legislature, right, in heavily Democrat districts where Republicans actually do have a voice, because you know what? There's two Democrats on the ballot, but one of them needs the votes of independents and Republicans. But skip forward to today. You can come with some bad outcome. I mean, if two Republicans get through the primary in California, those are the only choices. We know they're not going to, that's going to be. So, what do we do about it? It's the question.
So can I ask you a quick question? I should know the answer to this, Chad, or Sean or Ethan. So is there any write-in?
No. And that was discussed, because if you had a write-in, right, but you have a first past the post system, then a write-in could, a write-in can siphon vote. Then you have somebody being elected with less than 50, right? And so, people, I mean, I got, third parties and my friends in the, libertarian and green space, they were upset with me because I was working on this top 2 and like, oh, now you're further insulating the parties and everything, right? But we all know election reform is like a step at a time, right?
Yeah.
And we've done extensive polling on this, and Independent Voter Project is like, okay, now it's time. Let's move it to a 4 or 5 like Alaska did and implement ranked choice voting, right? When we poll this, the irony is among Democrats, 85, 90% of Democrats, you tell them, hey, would you support an initiative that allows you to vote among 5 candidates instead of 2, and then you can rank them? They poll higher than independents. So the question is, you have a packed field of Democrats, right? You got Swalwell, now you have Mahan, then you got Calderon, and you got Villaraigosa, and you have Becerra, right? And you have Lee, right? And that's the reason why you have 2 Republicans that might break through, because there's only 2, but there's 17,000 Democrats splitting up the vote. In their own self-interest, knowing that this is an issue that Democratic voters love, independents love, and Republicans, believe it or not, even with Donald Trump at a national level saying ranked choice voting is the worst thing in the world, Republicans still, a majority of them, support this. So
that's very cool.
So going back to what irks you, what irks me is like, does not one candidate have the guts to make this an issue in their campaign?
Really? Like, is it so radical?
Is it? Why? Because they go back to their consultants, and then they go back to the same old people who have gotten us in the situation we are today, and they go, oh no, that's going to make you, that's not mainstream, or we didn't poll that, and I know what's important in this election is crime, and what's important, right? There, you're going to find all these candidates running in California on a message of crime, like that was the issue last election. World's changed, right? But what they never go is, what about an issue that's just people would care about if you made it an issue, right?
Well, it's just like how, a lot of campaigns in California still campaign like they're running under a closed primary system.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because the political consultants are telling them just to stick with that.
But they make so much. I mean, I see this over and over and over, and we just saw one. I don't want to give up confidences and stuff, but I mean, the millions of dollars that are spent unwisely that actually work against the interest of the people putting the money into the campaign, it's omnipresent. It's most of the money. It's not a majority of the money. It's most of the money.
There's so much money in California already. Like the political consultants that are even coming from smaller areas and states, they're going to want to come to California because they know that.
It blows my mind. You have, like, everybody focuses on the billionaires and all this stuff. Yeah, they're putting in money into these things, right? But for the most part, they do have good agendas, right? Like they have things.
Oh my God, are you serious, Chad?
Well, not all. There's a lot. I'm saying, I shouldn't say for the most part. I should say there's a lot of them that do, right?
They all have their own agenda.
Correct. Right. It is their own, right? But what happened? My point, and I didn't say it right. You're right, Kara. But what I say is,
say that again. I want to hear you say, "You're right, Kara."
Yeah, Kara's, you're just like my wife. You're always right.
My favorite thing to hear.
Yeah. But for the record, Arielle, you are always right.
Oh, yeah.
But my point is, the money, like, you see these people that are so successful in business, right? They make so much money. They're executives. Everybody, right, answers to them. And then they come into politics and they get convinced by consultants to not go with their business gut, their sense, because these politicians have been around so long. I mean, these consultants have been around so long, so they know better. And they know, no, you really do need to buy $15 million worth of ads that use a typical commercial that looks like, oh, maybe are you selling a drug, or are you doing a template political
Yeah.
consultant campaign? Yeah, you definitely need to pay $50,000 for production, and yeah, you should definitely buy that whole market. Even though I know 90% of the people that see the commercial like aren't even voters, or they're not even in the district that you're doing, but yeah, you need to go ahead and spend $3 million, and they do it. And they do it. I was on a campaign where a consultant sent out mail and charged the campaign for the data every single time they sent out a piece of mail.
Ooh.
I see. So it's just
So the
a
data
recurring
company
trend.
makes money, the consultant makes money, and then the funder just goes, like they just trust them. And
Yeah.
it's like, all right, sorry, I digress.
Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty big digression there, Chad, I gotta
Yeah.
say. So, Chad, as long as we're talking about things that are annoying us, I did this story this week on this stock trading ban, and just looked like really granularly at this issue. I took off my Democratic Party hat and I just looked at it, with as clear eyes as I could. And what I saw was that we could totally have a stock trading ban if if one set of Republicans would join a Democratic petition, or another set would join a Republican discharge petition. And yet it's just stuck. Like, one discharge petition has 170 Democrats on it, and one discharge petition has like 80, a combination of Democrats and Republicans, so that if all of the Democrats were to go over to that discharge petition, it would be able to go onto the floor and bypass the
And vice versa.
speaker, and vice versa. But they won't.
Yeah, well now both sides get to go to their voters and say, look, we're trying to do something we know you want done, but the other side's stopping it, right? And then they have the exact
And they both
yeah,
are saying,
get to
we're
vote.
for this. We don't
Yeah.
think that we should be able to trade stocks because we are in, we're in sensitive committee meetings. We vote on bills that affect people, right, Sean? I mean, it's like,
Right. Well, I mean, it's just like, it really speaks to how public opinion has very little to no say, actually zero say on what Congress actually acts on. I mean, the SAVE Act is going to come up before a vote in the U.S. House again this week. Actually, now it's called the Save America Act because the SAVE Act is still languishing in the Senate. But it's the National Voter ID and Proof of Citizenship bill. And we know that voter ID is popular across the political spectrum. It is a nonpartisan issue. But the Republicans are, they have this proof of citizenship requirement for registration, which Democrats have raised legitimate concerns, just like Republicans are raising legitimate, issues with voter ID, and how, it's not a big deal. We show our ID every day, everywhere we go, whether it's to open a bank account or buy alcohol or anything like that. They point this out all the time. But it's interesting because if the Democratic leadership was just listening to its base, then I think it's Steve Peace wrote an op-ed last week saying they could call Republicans out on this and say, okay, so if this is about election integrity, let's offer these IDs for free. Let's expand it a little bit to include things like, hey, say student ID, right? And interesting to note is that the author of the Make Elections Great Again Act, which I had covered extensively recently on IVN, had come out and said, yeah, ID should be for free. If we are going to require voters to have a voter ID, the state should subsidize the cost for that. So,
I don't think many people would argue against it, but
well,
I
I
think
would
that's the
definitely, you don't have to take your birth certificate to go buy beer. I mean, it's if it depends on the kind of ID that they're asking for, I think,
right.
No,
Well, and this,
I mean, I know most people would disagree, like that the state should be able to provide
Right.
you a free ID,
well,
right?
because people don't like states having
I
lists of
honestly-
everybody,
Well, if you're not going to be on the list, it'd be hard to involve yourself in the voting process.
well, I mean, and this
right?
also gets into the difference between registration and at the poll. So
Yes.
the whole thing where birth certificate comes in is when people go to register, they have to show birth certificate or passport, which people have noted is there's a lot of Americans out there that don't have easy access to either of those documents to go, to provide proof of citizenship. And right now, under federal law, there is a uniform standard for that under the National Voter Registration Act for registering voters, and that is that voters right now have to swear under penalty of perjury that they're a U.S. citizen.
Perfect.
So this changes the model. So the burden is no longer on the state to prove whether or not you're a citizen if they want to challenge it. The burden is now on you to prove
And
it to
so
the state.
a lot of women really object to this because my birth certificate, for example, has my married name my non-married name on it, and my driver's license and everything else has my married name. And again, like we were talking about changing things midstream, you shouldn't do this right before an election. You should not be trying to change the rules about what it takes to register to vote in the months preceding
It's
an election.
terrible optics regardless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're exactly right. When you make these kinds of sweeping changes, it really invites this type of skepticism.
Well,
That
yeah, I mean,
Right, but I mean, to Chad's point, when you look at anything like the SAVE Act or the Stock Trading Act, it's something that fundraisers can run on.
Yes.
It's something that you can send fundraising emails with the extreme rhetoric of, oh, the Democrats are going to say, the Republicans are trying to suppress the vote, while Republican fundraisers can say, see, Democrats just want illegals to vote. They just want to cheat. So this benefits mostly the people who profit off this messaging. So
yeah. And if I can, since our theme was like what underlying irks, what irks is like, okay, you have the SAVE Act, and it was about like, okay, let's make sure the people are voting in our elections that should be. And then they make it this mega act and tack on this ridiculous stuff like, oh, we're going to tell. Yeah, right. This is I'm not one of the, this whole, we're having an authoritarian takeover. I think our institutions are going to stick strong. But like, you have the federal government now saying, no, you can't use ranked choice voting. You can't. I don't think this is ever going to survive judicial
I
scrutiny.
hope you're
first of
right. I
all,
mean, come
right?
on.
Not even, not even close, but just the level of stupidity. It's like, you know what? What? Okay, you are on the side of the angels. 80% of people want to have some form of voter ID. How about do a good bill, a good, clean bill that nobody can argue with?
Well,
right? And then they got to go and say, no, well, while we're doing this, we're also going to go and for the first time in history, take the full power and weight of the United States government and take over the most sacred process from the states, which was like, they always talk about 1776. This was an agreement between states.
Mm-hmm.
Article
Well, it
1,
feels like
Section
they're
4,
turning-
right?
they're
Which is why the time, place, manner provision is in Article 1.
Article 1.
And you have these constitutional thumping Republicans going, I'm going to attach something onto this voter ID thing that is like the biggest slap in the face to the Constitution. And I think justices, like, their own justices are going to say,
No.
you big government tyrants can't do this.
Well, it's trying to turn something that should be supported across the political spectrum into a partisan issue, right? Because now when people have backlash and say, well, ranked choice voting is good, then they can say, well, the left loves ranked choice voting. You shouldn't support that.
And they don't want voter ID and stuff.
Yeah.
What about me? I say, like, I actually do think we should have a clean, simple, bipartisan agreement on voter ID.
Yeah.
I think the other stuff, it's not even so much that obviously I oppose it. It's like a level of stupidity beyond belief, right? The national government is going to tell states they can't adopt methodology or can't do stuff.
Yeah.
But what you can do, you can still have closed primaries and prevent half of your electorate who pays taxes and funds those primaries from participating. That's acceptable.
No, and we see it all the time in the comments. People are like, well, why? I heard that ranked choice voting, I heard it only elects Democrats, or I heard it does this. And so people believe this stuff. And it's all about weaponizing the backlash against the backlash, right?
Well,
Right.
and it's just like with universal mail-in balloting, right? A state sends a ballot to every single voter, and so if you support that, then you must be in favor of cheating, or you're in favor of ballot harvesting, which is an entirely different issue. And so the other thing that the Mega Act would do is make it illegal for states to send a ballot to every single person. The problem with that is that there are states like Washington and Colorado who conduct their elections entirely by mail. And we're
100%.
we're going to pretend like mail-in voting is an issue when it's been around since the Civil War. So at least in some form. So it's
But there's also legitimate concerns. Like I always bring this up. California is one of the states that legalized ballot harvesting, right?
Yeah.
And yes, of course there's arguments that can be made for almost anything, right?
Mhm.
But there's a reason why it's illegal in so many places, because the opportunity to do bad stuff is so great, right? That we don't allow it in most places, and it's allowed here. So we have universal mail-in voting. We have this, right? And then we go and we have this aversion to cleaning the voter rolls because we don't want to accidentally remove one person like that is legitimate voter from the roll. But I guarantee it. You go down and walk around the college campus on around May to June. There's going to be mailboxes with 48 ballots stuffed in them from all the students that have registered to vote at that address and then never went to go and change it. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to those 48 ballots? First of all, we paid to send them all out, but
right.
What happens to
that's
them?
why I think that most people would say, yeah, you should write your driver's license number on that ballot and get it verified. I mean, it's
and
simple,
so I mean, like the extreme partisan
proposition.
rhetoric prevents us from having these conversations. Like I think the real issue that people need to talk about is chain of custody in terms of mail-in ballots. I think that is the most important issue. You have some states like Colorado, we talked about Colorado, where they will tell you step by step how they keep those ballots protected and secured from the moment it arrives to a voter's house to the moment it gets to, the post office, to the moment it gets to the state.
And
right?
each thing is checked, right? I mean, like there's a chain of
custody. Each thing
custody.
is checked off. And so, but there are some states like California that don't quite have that same chain of custody protection. So it's
well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Colorado, they had Amber McReynolds, right? That basically went and designed that process, and Amber is passionate about it, right?
She's a rock star.
It's pretty hard to question her integrity as Amber's going to be a operative for the Democratic Party. No, like if you know her, she ain't going to do that, right? So,
which is most of our election officials. So many of them are.
So most by
right?
the vast majority of them, right? The vast majority of them, like but
in Fulton County, Georgia, like look what's happening in Fulton County. I gotta say, they just seized 700,000 ballots. The FBI, the Director of National Intelligence, they show up in Fulton County and they seized those ballots. So when you said chain of custody, Sean, I keep wondering, like, did Fulton County take a picture of every single ballot before they got?
No, I don't. They specifically talked about that they didn't have a process for chain of custody. Right?
Well, maybe they should have had a process for chain of custody, right?
On the Fulton County thing, I just want to one thing about it is just like, we can argue like what's, the FBI is still there, all the stuff. But if you heard that story coming out of, some country in South America, like let's say, Nicaragua, the federal government came in and took 700,000 ballots from whatever province. Like, is that like, we would think, that sounds like a breakdown of democracy, right? Like just from a purely objective standpoint, like that just doesn't sound good. So, and that's what I think a lot of people would say, regardless of, we hope that the institutions hold up, but the pure, like just the idea of taking that action is anti-democratic. Would you agree, Chad?
Yeah, but I'm pro benevolent dictatorship.
Oh, okay.
It's efficient.
So
just remember, Ethan,
Chad is the person who plays devil's advocate.
Right.
Come on.
And I would like to point out that means that Chad is on the side of the devil. Right? He's actually advocating
what do you mean? I
for
said benevolent. I said no. I said benevolent.
Oh, sorry. He's advocating for the benevolent dictatorship. Oh dear. Well, we gotta move beyond that somehow.
We do have some big things going on in the back end. You'll see there's actually some big moves going on with the IVN.us website. We're getting ready to do we'll be making some updates here in the next 2-3 months that we are doing, and then at the same time, we're gonna have another very large survey. This time, last survey we pulled just independent voters. This time, we're gonna pull a cross section that reflects the expected turnout of the electorate on the California governor's race, and then on a number of issues that would be interesting nationwide. So. And then Ethan, continues to crush out these viral posts on social
Thank
media.
you, Ethan.
So, yeah,
when I find the time, it's always I love a good viral post. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. So, go. We're starting to put some effort into YouTube too. So find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. Come to ivn.us to read the news. I mean, you just search independent voter everywhere. You can generally find us. And if you find some quarters in the couch and want to donate them to our good cause at the Independent Voter Project, we'd love to do that too. So thank you all for joining us again. I hope you enjoyed this lively show today, and sayonara.
Good to see you guys.
This is the Independent Voter Podcast, sponsored by the Independent Voter Project and produced by OLAS Media. Remember, you can always find the Independent Voter Podcast or the How It Really Works series at ivn.us. Follow and subscribe at olasmedia.com.
OLAS Media.